Alright guys, today we're doing a 2011 Honda Odyssey starter replacement. So the first thing we're going to do, we need to get this component removed for the air cleaner so that we can get access to our battery. So I'm going to go ahead and use a screwdriver to pop these clips up. Looks like there's one here, one right here, and there's another one on this side. Sorry for any noise, but I'm gonna turn the mic around so you guys can see or hear a little better. There we go. Now we're gonna pull this up, set it aside. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect and remove the entire battery. Looks like somebody's already got these loosened up for me. Okay. Don't lose any of this. Okay, now we need a 10mm. Go ahead and get both of our starter options out. Set those to the side till we know which one we need. Use a 10mm to loosen and remove the battery cables. Negative first. And your positive. Pull this battery out. Let's set this tray here aside as well. We'll take this 10mm bolt out right here. And we should be able to, there's a couple tabs on the back. You can pull those to the side and this should slide up here. Come on now. There we go. Got that off. There's another tab here for a wire and harness, a little bit below it. I'll work that up. And it looks like we got okay, so we got a couple 10s. And then a couple more 10s. And I think there's a couple more here as well. And this is what it looks like with it out. You got two bolts. This would be towards the front of the vehicle. This is towards the rear. You got 4 bolts basically. And then there was a spot right here, I believe, where a wire was connected. I think it was actually here, right here. This goes into the intake, which I'll show you in a second. Then there's a few of these where you'll have to disconnect wiring from. There's a tab on the wire, you just pull it back, slide the wire off. You can keep this on. It does unbolt if you think it makes it easier. You can take those bolts out as well, but I found that I didn't need to do that. And then this wire was connected to it. This is the slots for this box. Then you've got another wire that clips on here, another one that clips on here, and then this clips into it as well. And this rubber grommet is where that stud goes into. Now that we got that out, we can see our starter. We need to disconnect this electrical connector, push in on the tab, pull out. Then we need to remove the B plus wire. That should be a 12 or a 13 millimeter. Also, these bolts over here that hold on the battery tray were actually 12 millimeter, not 10. So now I'm going to go ahead and get this cable removed, and then we'll find where the bolts are located. Okay, so we did get this off, 12 millimeter, and you can see the starter stud right here. And this one had another one of those little tab holder deals. So you need to push that tab out to the left and you can lift this up. Kind of see a little better. Where was it at? The bracket is like right under this hose. Here's my finger on it right here. That's where it connects. And it looks like the starter bolts. I'll try to get you in there. Well, let me see. Yeah, there it is. You can't really see it, but that bolt right there is the top starter bolt. So I'm going to be attempting to remove that one now. Alright guys, so I was able to get the starter out completely. You can see where it rested. I don't know if you can see that bracket there that's unhooked. I'll try to touch it. This actually goes through the lower starter bolt, and they kind of line up together with that hole. And guys, I'm not joking, this bottom starter bolt was one of the most pain in the ass starter bolts I've ever had to deal with. The top one, you can just get a 14 millimeter socket and extension, come out here with it, and you can wrench it out no problem. But down here, oh come on, focus. Down here you're fighting with this bracket, and you're also fighting with this engine mount. So I ended up using a 14, a swivel socket, and a ratchet, and that's it. And I did have to use two hands. It kept slipping off. It didn't want to break free because they were both relatively tight. But I did finally get it out. And once I did that, I went ahead and removed this bracket that was up here. That's the 10 millimeter bolt hole that it went through. This is what that bracket looks like. It kind of sits in there like this. I did have to remove it in order to get the starter fully removed. Here's what the old one and the new one look like sitting next to each other. I'm gonna go ahead and install the new one now. I do apologize I wasn't able to film most of that, but it's such tight spaces and there's really not a good spot to put the tripod where you can see it. So just be prepared that that bottom bolt is a major pain in the ass, but you can definitely get it done. I'll show you what I used real quick. So you got your swivel socket, your 14 millimeter, and your ratchet. This is what I used on the bottom bolt, and I held it on there with one hand and I pulled on it with the other. The other one, I used the same socket, but without the swivel, and I used an extension that was roughly 6 inches long, which is this one right here. Might be like 7 inches, something like that, but as long as you can get it to fit, that top bolt was really no trouble. Also, I went ahead and removed the transmission dipstick just to give myself a little bit more room. So now, I'm going to go ahead and get started putting that back in. Alright, so we just want to reverse the procedure of removal. We just got our new starter in there now, upper and lower bolt in. A couple things I do want to mention is make sure that the bracket right here, the hole in the bracket, make sure the bottom starter bolt goes through it and then it gets put back on properly. Also, I want to mention that there is a shim, or like a gasket basically, between the starter and the engine or the transmission, and you want to make sure to reinstall that to make sure that the lash is correct between the starter gear and the flex plate. It can be a pain in the ass, but there are 2 guide pins on the starter, and you can line those guide pins up with holes on the shim, and it'll hopefully stay on there for you. Or maybe you can put a little dab of super glue on the starter to hold it in place while you put it in. But once you got the starter in place, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and put our battery tray back in. Another huge tip is go ahead and zip tie this box out of your way, because otherwise you're going to be fighting with it the entire time, and it was really getting to me, so I had to move that thing. It was driving me crazy. So now I'm going to take this. You can kind of see that stud there. It's supposed to go in that rubber hole there. And then we want to try our best to clip that back in, okay? And then we got that in place. I think it needs to be scooted up a little so it lines up those bolt holes. Another thing I forgot to mention is that the air box also connects to it. So remember, we got 2 bolts here, 2 bolts back here, 1 bolt here, and then a few electrical connectors. Also, it's a good idea to go ahead and reconnect your 2 starter electrical connections before you put this back in. Otherwise, you'll have a hard time putting them back on like I did. But now we got this back in, all of our bolts are in, so we can take this off the bungee cord, put it back, and then reconnect all of our wiring connectors to the tabs. Then we can place our battery and battery tray back in. Alright, now we got everything back in and connected to our battery tray. We got this put back on, we got our bolt put back in. Make sure when you put this back in that the arrow points to the front, so that these little slots line up with the holes on both sides, so that your battery hold down can be placed back on correctly. Now we're going to go ahead, put our transmission dipstick back in. Oh, it goes down there. Okay. Alright. Okay, now that that's in place, we'll go ahead and put our battery in. There we go. We'll connect up our positive first. If we can get it out of there. Jesus, there we go. Go ahead and do that. Okay. And I do want to take this opportunity to kind of apologize. I know this is not my best video. I can't really film in such a tight space, and I struggled enough getting those bolts off without a camera in my hand, so I definitely do apologize that I wasn't able to show you everything. What's going on here? I'm gonna have to lift that up. Yeah, give me a sec. There we go. Got her all tightened down now. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the battery hold down, and then we'll put that air duct back in and the 2 clips that hold it on. Alright, now we got our battery hold down back on. You can put it under the handle, above the handle, doesn't really matter. The FR means point towards the front. Then you want to get those rods through the hooks at the bottom and tighten them down. Now, I'll take this, put it back in place, push that rubber over, get that down. There's a clip here and a clip here. So I want to go ahead and press those in. There's that one. There's that one. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put that little piece of the positive cable back on there, put these couple tools away, and we should be all finished up. Excellent. So this starter's working. The original starter was working as well, but it was making kind of a grindy-ish kind of noise. It almost sounded like the return spring that pulls the gear in the starter back after the engine starts wasn't working. So it was like the starter was failing, but hadn't totally failed yet. So the customer wanted to go ahead and put a new one in because they're going on a trip soon. So that is the end of our starter replacement. If you found this video helpful or informative, please go ahead and leave a like below. And also, if you have not already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Every single one of you subscribers really helps me out. Otherwise, hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.